Hello, everyone. Identifying causal relationships for a treatment intervention is a fundamental problem in health sciences, and randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, are considered the gold standard for this purpose. Since RCTs are expensive, time consuming, and not feasible in many cases due to ethical reasons, we resort to observation studies. For both observational and experimental studies, survival analysis provides standardized measures such as the survival curve and hazard ratio to quantify the effects of an intervention. While hazard ratios are widely used in clinical and epidemiological studies for RCTs, a principled approach does not exist to compute hazard ratios for observational studies with structural causal model. In this work, we focus on two of the metrics of survival analysis, survival curve and hazard ratio. We propose a novel approach to compute hazard ratios from observational studies using backdoor adjustment in structural causal model, or SCM in short, under structural theory of causation. We finally evaluate proposed approach using synthetic data and experimental data for Ewing sarcoma. Our methodology proposes a transformation of the single causal model to multiple causal models by finding the ith day survival of every individual from the survival time in the dataset. Here, I is the number of time units from the beginning of the study. We end up with n different SCMs, each with the same treatment X and confounder Z, but different outcomes, which is survival at ith day. For each of the newly transformed causal DAGs, we can now adjust for the confounder using the backdoor adjustment formula, generating the causal effect of X on Yi for n causal graphs. This helps us build back adjusted probabilities, adjusted patient count, and adjusted survival time. This newly calculated survival time is adjusted for the confounding bias as if they were sampled from an RCT. Now, the adjusted survival probabilities and survival time can be used to generate a causally formulated survival curve and hazard ratio. A summary of the complete procedure is presented as a generic algorithm. We evaluated the proposed approach for computing hazard ratio and visualizing survival curves with two datasets. One experimental, which is a synthetic dataset derived from a linear acyclic model with Gaussian noise and strong confounding bias, and one observational, which is a real-world dataset on disease-free survival in patients with Ewing sarcoma. In both cases, traditional methods generate a difference in survival curves and hazard ratios calculated, whereas our proposed methodology adjusts properly and generates an appropriate and synchronous hazard ratio and survival curve. To summarize, we propose a novel method to estimate the hazard ratio using the Cox proportional hazards model using the transformation of observational data to corresponding experimental data, leveraging an underlying structural causal model. Our proposed method is capable of generating both the survival curve and the hazard ratio, along with proper backdoor adjustment based on the underlying SCM. The hazard ratio calculated reflects true and direct causal relationship of treatment on outcome. Our assumptions include knowledge of the true causal model, an absence of unmeasured confounders, functional relationship in the SCM being time invariant, and proportionality of the hazard ratio in the outcome. Thank you.